one of the ones that I talked about was transition defense, and the point of this episode is to kind of show you guys some clips with transition defense, and we'll go ahead and pull up the first one here. And as always, we like to play it one time through, and I do
Mhm.
extend it to the offensive side so we can see what led to the transition defense. And to me, this is of the three, this is probably the one that's the most forgivable. Maybe you don't think it's a negative play by any means if you guys are watching this right now, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. This is in the first quarter with about 10 minutes left to play. And there's a pick and roll here on the offensive side of the court with PJ taking a right wing three. It kind of bounces out to the corner, and PJ is tempted to kind of follow his shot and get the ball. But the problem is Julius Randle, his man, and the matchup that he has, he's contested and he's already up the court. And so
Mhm.
because of that, they've had to have a cross match here, and you'll see here in the picture who's on Randall. It's LaMelo. So of the 5 players on the court, he's probably the least likely one to kind of stop this. And so the court is cleared basically completely out on the left-hand side. And then you've got Mark Williams, who obviously realizes this. His man is probably needs to be Mitchell Robinson, but Mitchell Robinson is going to the right side of the court, and then Mark Williams is still on the left side of the court on the block here because he knows that this is probably going to be an opportunity for Julius Randle to take advantage of LaMelo. So you've got this 4-on-3 situation on the opposite end. And it's almost as if like PJ is guarding Mitch and RJ. You've got Miller who's guarding Mitch and Brunson here. And then you've got Hayward up top guarding DiVincenzo, who just went crazy in this game. So as you can see, you got Mark Williams, who's kind of like in and out of the paint to make sure that defensive 3 seconds does not come. And so he's on the right side. I'm sorry, the left side with LaMelo here, and the drive comes, and he's kind of out of position. Like he's like more baseline than he is the inside. And you've got Brandon Miller and Washington that are defending Mitchell Robinson, and Washington obviously needs to be accounted for the RJ pass. Brandon Miller needs to account for Brunson while also account for Mitch. So he's so deep at this point. And it, inevitably you got Randall here who basically has all the Hornets players in the paint. You've got
Yeah.
shooters, yeah, you've got shooters on the outside.
I
And go ahead.
Just Richie, like I wanted to get this in while you have this freeze frame up. Like Randall could pass it to basically anyone here.
Yeah,
Like who is? I mean, maybe Brunson,
it's a
like
hard
PJ,
pass. Yeah.
but PJ and Miller are like sort of gapped up enough. But like everyone's in the paint, but like it does feel like if he could like swoop this around Mark Williams, then like he'd have a dunk. But just like it just I know like freeze framing doesn't tell a perfect story, but man, it just looks like everyone's open here for Randall. And yeah, the cross matches in this game for Charles transition defense didn't do them any favors.
But eventually it leads to a pass to Barrett and then a pass to Brunson. And I think Randall does a good job of holding Miller off with his eyes because with Mitchell Robinson down on that block and Miller obviously having to account for him, he's a little bit late coming out to Brunson, which is, it's probably forgivable in certain, instances here. But I don't know. There is one thing, and I'll let you talk about it here, but there is one thing that I think that they could have done differently. But of the 3 clips, this one, like I said, is not as egregious as the others.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the Hornets running like they do give PJ the occasional ball handling pick and roll possession, and they like to do this one where they run a UCLA screen into an empty side ball screen for PJ. So you see Brandon comes off the UCLA screen right into the empty side ball screen with Williams. Um, we'll get into this more over the next 2 clips, but just like the communication is so poor here. Like you can just see that again the matchups like PJ and Mark not communicating who's got who, the rotations not being there. Like so much of this stuff I do think comes down to really simple like are you talking? How are you talking? Like all of these guys know how to play basketball. Like a lot of these guys are veterans. Like one of the selling points on the Hornets as like a team to hit the over in terms of win total this year was like the continuity aspect. It's like a lot of these guys have played a lot of basketball together at this point. So for them to be having like these kinds of issues, that's like really like basketball 101, like communicating who you got, rotating. Pretty disappointing. And look, it speaks to like sort of some of the strengths of New York too. Like they've got big, strong guys in the forwards room with Barrett and with Randall. Both those guys can initiate, they can play make, and Tom Thibodeau has no issue just playing murder ball with those guys. Like they want to find matchups, poke at it, and play out of it. This team is strong, and Robinson is also obviously like a crisis to deal with in terms of like his work at the rim and on the glass. So um and then if DiVincenzo's going crazy, then what are you gonna? They're really tough to match up with in that case. So, but to me, just the disappointing part is like this. You can see it just watching from your computer or your TV screen. Like the communication is way off. They're not talking, or it's not like, or something's being lost in translation. They're certainly lost in transition. That's for sure. But yeah, disappointing to say the least. And again, I feel like this is just like strength on weakness in terms of like what New York has versus what Charlotte lacks defensively.
I think that's a perfect title for this episode, Lost in Transition. That was very creative, Brian. The only thing that I wanted to point out that they could have done differently, I know that you can't avoid every cross match, but knowing that the worst cross match in this specific example is right here, Randall with
Yeah.
Melo on him. Could there be an opportunity for PJ to switch right here? Uh, maybe communicate. I know it's difficult. I know it's very difficult, but they're kind of moving away from the left side every moment. At that
Mhm.
point, obviously, it's too late at this point, but like
Yeah,
initially
yeah.
could he have done that? But
Yeah,
I
maybe. I think if you're like locked in and on a string, maybe. What is disappointing is like the roster that's on the court for the Hornets in this play is
yeah,
6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'7", 7 foot. Like this and I know like LaMelo's like a little different because he's skinny and he's not like a great like man-to-man defender, but it's like conceivably this is like a lineup that in Mark Williams is like very mobile for a 7 footer. Like in theory, this is a lineup you shouldn't like feel bad getting cross matched with. It'd be one thing if it's Rozier or Book Knight or Ishmet, all of a sudden then it's a bigger issue. But yeah, it's disappointing that you have all of this like size personnel, and even then it's not like it's not giving you the types of advantages you'd like for it to be able to afford you.
all right, let's move on to clip number 2. This also comes in the first quarter with about 5 minutes and 21 seconds remaining, or at least that's when the basket goes through. Hornets are down 11 at this point, and as the clip plays out, you'll see what results for the Knicks. DiVincenzo, we mentioned before, that's obviously how that ends up, a right wing three with nobody near him as Randall just kicks it across. There it is. So Melo is obviously running back to get up to Brunson. He's kind of coming across Randall at this point. So we know that that's what we want. We want LaMelo on Brunson, potentially Hayward. But at this point, it's either Hayward or Bridges on Randall. Like you said, there's no communication. Obviously, these videos are muted, but you're not really missing much here in terms of the
Mhm.
communication. So with Hayward being a little bit closer and Miles being a couple steps back, you would think that just this is just Hayward's guy right here. I mean, obviously, it's on both guys to kind of communicate this, but there really isn't many mismatches here other than Ish Smith right here in the in the paint here with RJ, but that's not the issue. The issue is DiVincenzo wide open on this right wing three. And when you have the occasions where there's not the mismatch like last possession, like you've got to be able to communicate through that. And yeah, I don't know what it is, but nobody picks up Dante here.
Yeah, I mean, this is as bad as it gets. Like truly, this is as bad transition defense as you'll find in the NBA. Like again, no, where's the communication? Where's the talk? Um, some of this is like should be I think sort of like basic transition principles, but you can smooth over some of that if guys are talking and guys are sort of like knowing where the other guy wants to be, and if not, then pointing that out. I mean, Bridges doesn't pick anyone up in this clip. Like like who is he guarding here? Um,
Is
but
is
but
is he thinking that Hayward's picking up Brunson at this point? And then
I
you can really
mean,
see LaMelo doing I'm
I
not really sure.
I get. I mean, but like when you freeze it here, it's like who? Like he's on Randall, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just it's really confusing. I mean, I think like well, I you know, say like I think LaMelo and Hayward are like and Williams are like the I think those guys like actually have it like they're at least like where they're supposed to be, but like whether they're communicating that is the issue. And then certainly like Ish guarding RJ is a, like I mean, New York, if they felt like could have just thrown it into him for a layup here. But I mean, just a good shooter to be literally standing. Like, look how early he's open here. Like, I just this DiVincenzo won't get an easier catch and shoot three all season than this. Like, this
Yeah,
is just
77, the ref might be able to block him, but other
I
than that
mean, he is far and away the closest person on. Like, there are people in the front row that are closer to him than anyone on the Hornets. Like, it's kind of. I mean, every perimeter defender is on the opposite side of the nail. Like, they're where like no one even thought to fan out here. Like, it's again, it's. Look, a lot of stuff can go wrong if you're isolating one possession, but it's sort of like emblematic of all of the defensive issues with the team right now. This is the worst defense in the NBA. This is the worst transition defense in the NBA, and the film matches the numbers. And you can even see LaMelo, like I mean, he as the shot is like midair, he is sort of like perplexed by,
oh, there's a lot of
just
hands. There's a lot
yeah,
watch
yeah,
Hayward's hands too when the pass goes.
yeah. And it's like, yeah, I mean, everyone, no hand in the face. Everyone's hands, pointed to the sky,
Incredulous, yeah.
wondering, yeah, not a great defensive position to be in. And like again, I to the guys who are in the right position, I mean, congratulations, but there's just got to be more communication than this because if teams are like locked in and talking, then good shooters like this aren't just moonwalking into wide open catch and shoot threes without even a single contest. Like, um, something to you can always pay attention to this if you're watching a game at any point in time like you don't even need to be tracking this statistically but you can just like pause and see what contests look like and see if the shots go in or not like NBA players only really the great ones are going to make shots over like excellent contests but if you give a no contest like that then yeah I mean anyone Mitchell Robinson probably could have stepped in and drilled that shot and instead it's DiVincenzo so it's like far less forgivable and far less surprising that he drilled it.
Yeah, and to your point about, like, you could have 4 guys being where they need to be, but if you have a 5th guy that's just off
Yeah.
the script and,
Yeah.
just throws everything out of whack and, not to isolate Miles Bridges in that situation, but he was the one that caused, that, right wing 3, so we will get to the final clip here, Brian, and this is an interesting one. It's a dead ball turnover, 8:40 left in the game, and the Hornets are actually trying to claw back here. They're down by 8 at this point. So this is following a turnover, and it leads to a corner 3. And so you see the ball go out of bounds, a couple people with their heads down, jogging. I get it. Like there's a turnover. It's a dead ball turnover, but Hartenstein gets the ball in really quickly to Brunson, who takes a couple of dribbles, hits RJ in the corner, and then Bridges is just not aware of RJ, who has been very good from behind the arc, very good in the corners to start this season. And he drills it, forcing Clifford to take a timeout. I'm not sure if that's in the clip here, but yeah, he points
Yeah.
over to the ref. He needs it. But yeah, this just can't happen. And this is a Knicks team too, Brian. Like they could care less about pushing the pace. They are a slow team. They might be last in the NBA in terms of just their overall pace. And kind of what you were talking about earlier, like this has to be corrected. And after watching clips upon clips upon clips, not in just this game, there needs to be more of an emphasis on transition defense. I think we talked about preaching communication. That solves some things. I think limiting the turnovers, that solves some things. But players themselves have to be a little bit more accountable in terms of like putting forth the effort and preventing these things from happening. Because to your point, a team that lacks talent, a team that is just one injury away from a semi-solid season to a disappointing season. Everyone needs to be on their like 100% game.
Yep.
There's a mental aspect to this game where I feel like is lacking with this whole team, and it leads to plays like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's no like again, it shouldn't come as a surprise. And again, I think on all of these, communication is the lack of communication is key. But this one really does sort of like reek of like accountability. Like you said it a second ago, Richie. Like I just pulled this up from inpredictable.com. After a made shot,
Oh yeah.
I know this is after a turnover, but after a made shot, New York is the slowest team in the NBA, 19.2 seconds per possession. After a turnover, they're 23rd with 9.1 seconds per possession. So like, yeah, you're right. Like they're an efficient offense, but this is not like they're not like a go-go team. Like they're like a get the ball into the half court and just maul you with their strength and their talent. Like all of their guys are just super strong. Brunson, Barrett, Randall, Robinson, Hart. Like it's just a. I know quickly he's maybe not like the strongest guy, but he's a very impressive player and a really solid two-way guard too. So they're a great team. Like I will say this like as an aside. If you're a New York fan, it really does feel like this is a team to be proud of because they're talented, they're connected, they pounce on everyone's mistakes, they play hard, they're like ruthlessly efficient, attacking mismatches. Like I don't know, man, it's just really a team to take advantage of, or a team that you could like wrap your arms around. I feel, and then again, to me, because of that, it's no surprise that they were, look at Hardenstein knows, like
Yeah. Yeah.
he's so ahead, he can see this three and a half
First,
seconds before it happens, and he makes sure to get the ball out quickly, and the the refs do him a favor and get it back quickly. And like maybe the ball takes a weird bounce after the turnover, so like it gets there, it gets to the ref and to Hardenstein pretty quickly. But you're right. Like again, Steve Clifford called a timeout right after this. I'm sure this is the stuff that if Steve Clifford still had hair, it would probably make him probably make it fall out. Like this is absolutely like stuff that can't happen for him in terms of his philosophy around the game of basketball. And yeah, it's disappointing to see this is a team that, at this point it's a 3-possession game with 9 minutes to play. You're at home. I know it's a back-to-back, second night of a back-to-back.
yeah.
But just like not what I know what the clips we're showing are from the Hornets broadcast, but the game broadcast that I had through Synergy was the MSG broadcast. So it's Mike Breen and Wally Zerbiak doing the road games, not Clyde Frazier. And they multiple times during this game were like, man, they were remarking, hey, it doesn't seem like the Hornets sort of like want to fight to get back into this game. And this clip does sort of strike me as that it's maybe not like fair to judge someone in terms of, or judge an athlete in terms of like effort and compare, and to do that from watching from my desk or whatever. But on some of these, it does seem so like abundantly obvious that it's sort of hard to not remark on it. If you're trying to look a little bit favorably, it's like that lineup definitely hasn't played together so far this season. Like the Bridges, PJ, small ball, Miller, LaMelo, and I think McGowan's the fifth guy out there. So it's like, maybe they're working in they're not working in new stuff necessarily, but like some of these are lineups that haven't played previously. So maybe some of this gets smoothed out with more playing time, but that's a very like generous read, I think. And this is all very disappointing because one of the reasons the Hornets played well the final 2 months last season was because they started to like nail the small stuff with transition defense. JT Thor, Mark Williams, Dennis Smith Jr., who, man, they missed DSJ just so bad. They could use him. So like Richie, you and I were talking about this the other week, but man, they could really use him because they could use another ball handler and they could use another defender. So yeah, that's all I got. Look, it's gonna have to get better. If it doesn't, then this is just gonna keep happening every other night. Like you're gonna have embarrassing clips like this, and you're gonna get lit up with wide open catch and shoot threes.